18 of Shakespeare's plays found their way into print during the playwright's lifetime, but there is nothing to suggest that he took any interest in their publication. These 18 appeared separately in editions called quartos. These pages were not much larger than the one you are now reading, and these little books were sold unbound for a few pence. The earliest of the quartos that still survive were printed in 1594, the year that both Titus Andronicus and a version of the play now called the Sec. II King Henry VI became available. While almost every one of these early quartos displays on its title page the name of the acting company that performed the play, only about half provide the name of the playwright, Shakespeare. The first quarto edition to bear the name Shakespeare on its title page is Love's Labour's Lost of 1598. A few of these quartos were popular with the book-buying public of Shakespeare's lifetime. For example, Quarto Richard II went through 5 editions between 1597 and 1615. But most of the quartos were far from bestsellers. Love's Labour's Lost, 1598, for instance, was not reprinted in quarto until 1631, after Shakespeare's death. 2 more of his plays appeared in quarto format. Othello in 1622, and The Two Noble Kinsmen, co-authored with John Fletcher in 1634. In 1623, 7 years after Shakespeare's death, Mr. William Shakespeare's comedies, Histories and Tragedies, was published. This printing offered readers in a single book 36 of the 38 plays now thought to have been written by Shakespeare, including 18 that had never been printed before, and it offered them in a style that was then reserved for serious literature and scholarship. The plays were ranged in double columns on pages nearly a foot high. This large page size is called folio, as opposed to the smaller quarto, and the 1623 volume is usually called the Shakespeare First Folio. It is reputed to have sold for the lordly price of £1. One copy at the Folger Library is marked 15 shillings, that is £0.75. In a preface to the first folio entitled To the Great Variety of Readers, 2 of Shakespeare's former fellow actors in The King's Men, John Herming and Henry Condell, wrote that they themselves had collected their dead companion's plays. They suggested that they had seen his own papers. We have scarce received from him a blot in his papers. The title page of the folio declared that the plays within it had been printed according to the true original copies. Comparing the folio to the quartos, Hemming and Condell disparaged the quartos, advising their readers that before you were abused with divers stolen and surreptitious copies, maimed and deformed by the frauds and stealths of injurious impostors. Many Shakespeareans of the 18th and 19th centuries believed Hemming and Condell and regarded the folio plays as superior to anything in the quartos. Once we begin to examine the folio plays in detail, it becomes less easy to take at face value the word of Hemming and Condell about the superiority of the folio texts. For example, of the first 9 plays in the folio, 1 quarto of the entire collection, 4 were essentially reprinted from earlier quarto printings that Hemming and Condell had disparaged, and 4 have now been identified as printed from copies written in the hand of a professional scribe of the 1620s, named Ralph Crane. The 9th, The Comedy of Errors, was apparently also printed from a manuscript, but one whose origin cannot be readily identified. Evidently, then, 8 of the first 9 plays in the first folio were not printed, in spite of what the folio title page announces. According to the true original copies or Shakespeare's own papers, and the source of the 9th is unknown. Since today's editors have been forced to treat Hemming and Condell's pronouncements with skepticism, They must choose whether to base their own editions upon quartos or the folio on grounds other than Hemming and Condell's story of where the quarto and folio versions originated.